Okay, so today we're going to be looking into something pretty wild, xenotransplantation.
Oh, yeah.
It's it's the idea of taking organs from animals and putting them into humans.
Yeah.
Like full-on organ transplants, to save lives and potentially solve a whole bunch of medical problems.
It's a pretty radical concept.
Right. It sounds like sci-fi, but it's something that scientists are working on right now.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to unpack here.
There is.
Both the incredible possibilities, but also the ethical challenges that come with it.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be digging into today, with Jörg-Owe essay on xenotransplantation.
Schneppat really gets into the nitty-gritty of this topic, exploring both the scientific advancements and the ethical dilemmas that this field presents.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from the tough questions, which is great, because we need to be asking those questions. So we're going to be covering a lot of ground today. The science behind xenotransplantation, the history of it, the hurdles that researchers are facing, and of course the ethical considerations.
Yeah, the ethical considerations are huge.
They are. They're massive, and we can't ignore those.
Well, absolutely not.
So let's jump right in.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about xenotransplantation, why is the focus primarily on pigs?
I
mean, why not monkeys or, something a bit more cuddly?
Well, you might be surprised to hear that pigs are actually a surprisingly good match for humans.
Oh, really?
Physiologically, yeah.
Okay.
Their organs are similar in size and function to ours.
Huh. Interesting.
And importantly, they reproduce quickly.
Okay.
And they can be genetically modified.
Right.
Which is really crucial for minimizing the risk of rejection.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
So it's not just a random pick. There's real scientific reasoning behind it.
Exactly. There's a lot of thought that's gone into this.
Okay, so, and speaking of the rejection issue, Schneppat mentions that scientists are using some seriously cutting-edge techniques to overcome that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Can you walk us through some of those advances?
Yeah, one of the biggest breakthroughs has been in the field of genetic engineering.
Okay.
So scientists can now actually modify pig genes to make their organs more compatible with the human immune system.
Wow.
So, for instance, they figured out how to deactivate harmful viruses that exist in pig DNA.
Wait, hold on. Pigs have viruses in their DNA.
They do, yeah, but these are typically harmless to pigs.
Okay.
But they could pose a risk to humans if they were transmitted through transplantation.
Oh, that makes sense.
So that's why scientists are using techniques like somatic cell, nuclear transfer, or SCNT, yeah, to create pigs that are essentially virus-free.
Oh, wow.
It's like they're creating a blueprint for the perfect donor pig.
Like custom-mating a pig.
Exactly.
Right.
Ensuring that the organs are as safe as possible for human recipients.
It's mind-boggling how science is literally rewriting the genetic code.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible what they can do now.
It is, and Schneppat even highlights a recent success story, the 2022 transplant of a genetically modified pig heart into a human patient.
Yeah.
This feels like a pivotal moment, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. It offers a lot of hope for those on organ transplant waiting lists.
Yeah.
But it also brings the ethical debate into sharp focus.
Right, because we can't just gloss over those ethical complexities.
Absolutely not.
Using animals for human benefit raises a lot of questions about animal welfare and our responsibility to other species.
Yeah, it's a really complex issue.
It is, and Schneppat brought up the baby Faye case.
Yeah.
The infant who received a baboon heart transplant back in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 1980s.
And it sparked protests and really ignited the conversation about the morality of xenotransplantation.
It was a real turning point in how we viewed xenotransplantation. It forced us to confront those difficult questions, like where do we draw the line?
Yeah. Where do we draw the line?
How do we balance the potential to save human lives with the welfare of animals?
Right.
And how do we ensure informed consent, especially when you're dealing with vulnerable patients who are, desperate for a cure?
They're desperate for any option.
Exactly.
And might not be thinking as clearly as they would otherwise.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation.
Yeah, these questions we can't shy away from.
No, absolutely not.
And it's not just about the animals, right?
Right.
There are ethical considerations for the human recipients as well.
For sure.
Especially regarding informed consent.
Absolutely. Patients need to fully understand the risks involved.
Right.
And we need safeguards to prevent coercion or exploitation.
Yeah.
Particularly for those who might feel that they have no other options.
Yeah, like we were saying.
Exactly.
Schneppat's essay really emphasizes the need for transparency and open discussion on these ethical dilemmas.
It does, and I think that's crucial as the science progresses.
Yeah, transparency is key.
Especially when you're dealing with something as groundbreaking and potentially controversial as xenotransplantation.
Right.
It's important that people understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And that they feel like they have a voice in the conversation.
And that their concerns are being addressed and taken seriously.
And that's particularly important when you consider public perception, you know?
Oh, yeah.
People often have very strong feelings about the use of animals in medical research.
Yeah.
And those feelings can be amplified when we're talking about something as dramatic as organ transplantation.
It's understandable, right?
It is.
I mean, we're talking about introducing animal organs into the human body.
Yeah.
And that can be a little unnerving for some people.
It can be, yeah.
So how do we bridge that gap between scientific advancements and public anxieties?
Well, I think it's about having honest conversations about the risks and the benefits.
Okay.
Addressing concerns openly and ensuring that public anxieties aren't simply dismissed, but they're acknowledged and addressed with scientific evidence.
And with clear communication.
And with clear communication.
Yeah, it's a two-way street.
It is.
Scientists need to communicate clearly, and the public needs to be open to understanding the complexities and the nuances of the science.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great place to pause for a moment.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll unpack some of the specific challenges that scientists are facing in making xenotransplantation a safe and viable option.
Sounds good.
Stay with us.
So we were just talking about, you know, the importance of transparency and open communication when it comes to xenotransplantation.
Yeah, it's crucial, especially when you're dealing with something as potentially game-changing as this.
Absolutely.
But even with all the ethical considerations we've been discussing, there's still a whole other layer of challenges that researchers are facing on the purely scientific front.
Right. You know, even if we sort out all the ethical questions, there's still the question of, can we actually make this work?
Exactly. And one of the biggest hurdles, as we touched on earlier, is rejection, the body's natural immune response to foreign tissue.
Yeah, the immune system is pretty good at recognizing what belongs and what doesn't.
And it does not like intruders.
No.
So how are scientists addressing this issue on a practical level?
Well, it comes down to genetic engineering.
Right.
Remember we were talking about somatic cell nuclear transfer, or SCNT?
Yeah, it sounded pretty sci-fi.
It is kind of like science fiction come to life.
So remind me again, how does that play into this whole rejection problem?
Well, think of SCNT as like creating a blueprint for the ideal pig organ donor.
A blueprint. So we're not talking about trial and error here.
Not exactly.
There's a deliberate, methodical approach to modifying these organs.
Precisely with SCNT, scientists can go in and actually manipulate the pig's DNA.
Wow.
They can remove the genes that trigger the rejection response in humans.
Oh, so they're like custom designing these organs for transplantation.
Exactly. They're trying to make them as compatible as possible with the human immune system.
That's incredible. That level of precision is just mind-blowing.
It really is. We're talking about rewriting the genetic code here.
And even with all this genetic fine-tuning, rejection still remains a challenge.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a simple fix.
Jörg-Owe's essay actually delves into the complexities of this issue.
Yeah, he does a good job of breaking it down.
He highlights different types of rejection the body can mount against a transplanted organ, and he mentions chronic rejection as a particularly stubborn obstacle.
Yeah, chronic rejection is a tough one.
What makes this type of rejection so difficult to overcome?
Well, it's a bit of a mystery even to scientists.
Oh, really?
Unlike hyperacute rejection, which happens immediately.
Right.
Or acute rejection, which occurs within days or weeks.
Yeah.
Chronic rejection can take months or even years to develop.
Oh, wow.
It's this slow, insidious process.
So it's like a ticking time bomb.
In a way, yeah. Even if the transplant seems successful initially, there's this underlying threat that can emerge way down the line.
And what's causing this delayed reaction?
That's the million-dollar question. Researchers are still trying to figure out the exact mechanisms behind chronic rejection.
I see.
It seems to be a complex interplay of various immune cells and inflammatory processes.
It's got to be so frustrating for these scientists.
Oh, absolutely.
They're so close to solving this problem, but this one piece of the puzzle just keeps eluding them.
Yeah, it's like having almost all the pieces, but you can't quite see the full picture.
So how are they approaching this challenge if they don't fully understand what's causing it?
Well, they're taking a multi-pronged approach. They're exploring a range of different strategies.
Okay.
Some of the research is focused on developing new immunosuppressive drugs.
Okay, so drugs that basically suppress the immune response.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that make the recipient more vulnerable to other infections?
It's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah.
They have to find that sweet spot where they can suppress the immune response enough to prevent rejection,
Right.
but not so much that the patient becomes immunocompromised. Other researchers are looking into ways to further modify the pig organs to make them even less visible to the human immune system.
So it's like they're trying to camouflage the organ.
Exactly. They're trying to trick the immune system into thinking that it's not a foreign invader.
It's amazing to think about all the intricacies of the immune system and how much we still don't know.
Yeah, the human body is incredibly complex.
And that complexity is part of what makes xenotransplantation such a challenging endeavor.
It definitely adds another layer of difficulty.
But even with all these unknowns, there's still a sense of optimism in the scientific community.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The advancements in genetic engineering and immunology are happening at an unprecedented pace.
It really is an exciting time to be in this field.
It's a testament to human ingenuity and our determination to overcome these obstacles.
Absolutely.
But even if we crack the code on rejection, Schneppad's essay points to another significant hurdle.
Oh, right.
The risk of infectious diseases.
Yeah, that's a big one.
He talks about the potential for zoonotic diseases.
Right.
Flows that can jump from animals to humans.
Yeah, like we've seen with HIV and Ebola.
Exactly. And that's a scary thought, especially when we're talking about transplanting organs.
It's a very real concern, and one that scientists are taking extremely seriously.
So how are they mitigating this risk?
Well, first and foremost, donor pigs are carefully screened and raised in highly controlled environments.
Because these aren't your average farm pigs.
No, definitely not.
These are pigs that are bred and raised specifically for xenotransplantation.
Exactly.
So it's all about minimizing the risk from the start.
Right. Trying to ensure that the donor animals are as healthy as possible.
And what about after the transplant?
Well, recipients are closely monitored for any signs of infection.
Okay.
And they're also given a regimen of antiviral medications to further reduce the risk.
So it's a multi-layered approach.
It has to be. We can't eliminate the risk entirely, but we can take steps to significantly reduce it.
It sounds like a constant balancing act, managing the risk of infection while also making sure that these life-saving transplants are accessible to those who need them.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
And that leads us to our next segment, where we'll explore the regulatory landscape surrounding xenotransplantation.
Right, because with all these complexities and potential risks, it's clear that we need a robust system in place to ensure safety and ethical practices.
We'll delve into that right after the break.
Okay, so we've been talking about the science, the ethics, the challenges of xenotransplantation.
Yeah. A lot to consider.
It really is. I mean, it has the potential to revolutionize medicine.
Right.
But with any groundbreaking technology comes a whole lot of questions about safety and oversight.
Absolutely. We can't just jump into this without thinking through all the implications.
Exactly. So that's where the regulatory landscape comes in.
Right. The rules of the road, so to speak.
Exactly. So who's setting those rules? Who's at the helm of the xenotransplantation ship? Well, in the U.S., the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, plays a central role.
Okay, so
they have a dedicated xenotransplantation subcommittee.
Oh, wow. So they're not just lumping this in with regular organ transplant regulation.
No, it's a whole different ballgame.
Makes sense.
It requires a whole new set of guidelines and regulations.
So what does the FDA actually do in terms of oversight?
Well, they do a lot, actually. They review preclinical data.
Okay.
They approve clinical trials.
Right.
They set standards for donor animal care and screening.
Makes sense.
And they also monitor recipients for potential complications and long-term effects.
So it's a pretty comprehensive approach.
It is. They're really trying to cover all the bases.
And Jörg-Owe actually talks about this in his essay.
Yeah.
He stresses the importance of a robust regulatory framework.
He's right.
He argues that without clear guidelines and strict oversight, there's a real risk of ethical breaches, safety concerns, and a loss of public trust.
Absolutely. You need to have that framework in place.
Otherwise, it's just a free-for-all.
Exactly, and that could set the whole field back.
So the FDA's role is to make sure that xenotransplantation is conducted safely and responsibly.
Right. Protecting both the recipients
and
the integrity of the scientific process itself.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
It is.
You want to encourage innovation, but you also have to mitigate risk.
Yeah, you don't want to stifle progress.
Right.
But you also don't want to rush into something that could have unforeseen consequences.
And it's not just a national issue either. Right?
Yeah.
Xenotransplantation research is happening all over the world.
It's a global effort.
So how do we ensure consistency and ethical standards across borders?
Well, that's where international collaboration comes in.
Okay.
Organizations like the World Health Organization, the WHO, they play a crucial role in establishing global guidelines.
So it's about creating a shared framework
Right.
that prioritizes safety, transparency, and ethical considerations.
No matter where the research is taking place.
It's really remarkable to think that we might be on the verge of a future where organ shortages are a thing of the past.
I know, it's an incredible thought.
A future where people don't have to wait years for a life-saving transplant.
It would be a game changer for so many people.
But as Schnepphat so eloquently argues, this future depends not only on scientific breakthroughs, but also on navigating the ethical complexities,
right?
Fostering public understanding,
absolutely,
and having that solid regulatory framework in place.
It's all connected. You can't have one without the others.
Well, it's been a fascinating journey exploring the world of xenotransplantation with Jörg-Owe Schnepphat's essay as our guide.
It really has opened my eyes to the possibilities and the challenges.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the boundaries of what's possible.